I'm Helen Bresnahan, and I lived here in Bourne for quite a few years. Now, about school. Okay, when I was in sixth grade, and the sixth grade was way back here in the corner where the community building is now, the small community building where 60 people gather, and sometimes more, and we have our speakers and talks and so on. That was our first grade. It was a first grade of maybe 20 children. And in the middle of that room was this wonderful, magnificent sandbox. What else to put on a first grade in a Bourne room where children can gather and they play in the sand all summer, and then they miss it in the winter. Well, we did miss it, but here it was. And it came up to about waist high, so that was on a stand of sorts. And at times, we were always given a free time to go and play in the sandbox. There were cars, there were trucks. The sandbox was about 7 by 5, and it was filled with wonderful, clean sand. And we had trucks in the sandbox. We had cars in the sandbox. We even had little houses that we could move around. Well, we were stigmatized by it. We just loved it. And many times the children would gather around and do what they could to the sandbox. And they would also pretend that they were in the car or in the trucks and so on. But there were two children who liked to stay longer, and they knew that they were going to have to learn Jane and Dick will run down the street after Spot. Well, we weren't into Spot, Jack, and Jane. And so what we did, the teacher did, is she allowed two of us, the two that always stood by that sandbox and made sure that it was safe and clean, and we had trucks and houses, as I mentioned before, and we played with it. She let us play, the two of us, and that's what we did. We took trucks down into the valley. We made ponds with I think aluminum. The houses were always on the top of a sand dune, and we loved it. It was wonderful. The two of us, Georgie and I. Later on, through the years, I wanted to find out about Georgie and what Georgie did. After he graduated high school, he went in the Army, and he ended up in Vietnam. And I do not know what happened to Georgie at that juncture. But anyway, that was one of the experiences in the school. Another experience I had was something very interesting. Mrs. Silva was our 5th grade teacher. She was big on groups. She loved to have students in groups of all kinds, and we appreciated that very much because that's the way we were. We worked best in groups for some of us, and some of us worked best singly. But Mrs. Silva appreciated that. She also kept tune in with what was going on in the canal. She lived on Belle Ave, which is right off of Shore Road, and I think maybe a relative was part of the canal, some part of it. Okay, so one day she came in and she said, "Now, right after lunchtime, I think all of us are going to go outside, and we're going to go all the way to the back, and then the back." Today, there is, over on one side, there is in the corner, there is, looks like a baseball field. And then over on this corner, way up here, there used to be another baseball field for those of us who went out during recess and played baseball, softball, actually. Well, anyway, around that time, around noontime, we went outside, we all gathered together, and there were 30 of us. There were big classes here in 1955, I think it was, 1955. Anyway. So we went down as close as we could get, and she told us to make sure we stayed in line, at least stay back from a certain point, because she wanted to be able to control even though it was a huge area. She just wanted us down there. The next thing I knew, she said, and this is, remember now, this is the 1950s. There were no trees in front of that canal. We could look down. We could see the train tracks, and you could see no trees, maybe a little brush, and that was it. So we had a great view of the canal when we were down there. Next thing she says, I want everybody to look straight ahead. And there, up from the south part of the canal, came this strange-looking boat. It was strange. I mean, this was not a two-story boat. It wasn't a cruise ship. It wasn't an oil tanker. It was a submarine. She knew that a submarine was going to be traveling that day through the canal. And as it continued passing us, all the crew, the sailors, were outside. They were standing next to each other, white uniform, looking up at us. It was one of the most delightful times, I think, of my life that I saw something like that, and it was. I think we'll never forget it. That was our submarine experience.